Greetings friends and fellow cigar box guitar enthusiasts. Del Puckett here, and in this video I want to break down the E major scale. So we're tuned E, B, E. So the E major scale, like any major scale, is a series of whole steps and half steps. And so the best thing to do is just to memorize the step sequence. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Again, that's whole step, half step, whole step, half step. 2 whole steps and a half step, then 3 whole steps and a half step. And this is what it looks like. So starting from your root, you're gonna go whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. So a half step is just the next fret above, and then a whole step is actually jumping over a fret. So that's a whole step, and that's a half step. This is the way it sounds. So a lot of times people will refer to these as numbers rather than chords. So you'd say root or open would be 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 1 again, or 8. That would be the octave. So like when they refer to the third, they would be referring to this note here, which is the third note in the scale. The fourth would be this note here, or the fourth note in the scale. The fifth would be this note here, which is the fifth note in the scale. Not the frets, but the scale degrees. And of course, those would also correspond and relate to the chords. In other words, this chord here would be the 4 chord. This chord here would be the 5 chord. This chord here would be the 6 chord, etc. So, the major scale, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. And in this case here, we are talking in context of the key of E. Okay, so now let's look at some of the chords in the key. So the first chord is a major chord. And this is how you build it. You're going to put a major third on the top here. So it's going to be E, B, and in this case here we're going to put a G sharp. This is the major third. And why is it a major third? Because it's 2 whole steps, 1, 2 above the root. See, this is the root, and this is the major third. So I put them all together and I get an E major chord. All right, so that's the first chord in the key. The second chord in the key is going to be F sharp, and it's going to be minor. So the minor third here is a step and a half above the root of this chord here. So this is F sharp minor. And these are all movable chords. The 3 chord up here at the 4th fret is another minor chord. The 4 chord is another major chord. Again, it's major because the major third is 2 whole steps above its root. The 5 chord, up here B, another major chord. The 6 chord, C sharp minor, and again it's minor because its third is a step and a half above its root. So you put them all together, you get major, minor, minor, major, major, minor. So you have 3 major chords, the 1, the 4, and the 5. And you have 3 minor chords, the 2, the 4, and the 6. And what makes a minor chord is a step and a half above its root, And what makes a major chord is 2 whole steps above its root. All right, let me show you some of my favorite chords and some of the tricks that I use. So instead of building a chord with my index finger, flat barring it, I'm going to use my 2 middle fingers. And what that does is it frees up my index finger on this side and my pinky on this side so I can do things here. So if I put this index finger here on the high string, it becomes a major 7 chord. So this would be A major 7. And these are all movable chords. So if I take this root here all the way up to the E up here, it becomes an E major 7 chord. If I build a chord here at the 7th fret, remember this is the 5 chord, and I put my index finger here, this becomes what they call a dominant 7 chord. So this would be B dominant 7, or often referred to as just B7. Now again, all of these chords are movable. Another trick that I like to do is what they call invert the chord. So remember how we were doing the major chords like this? I was putting my major 3rd here. You can also put this in the bass. So this is the way it would look like here. So this would be an A major chord, but the 3rd is in the bass. They call this an inverted chord. This would be B major, but an inverted. Here's E major, but again, the bass, the 3rd is in the bass. This would be an inversion, first inversion of an E major chord. Here's an inverted minor chord. Another inverted minor chord. So just by simply putting the 3rd in the bass, you can invert same chord, but beautiful sounds. So you just doubled all your chords. So I recommend getting familiar with the sound and the flavor of the major scale, then of course the finger patterns underneath the fretboard, and then just experimenting and exploring the fretboard, and you're going to come up with so many awesome, cool sounding chords. All right, that's it. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share. And until next time, don't forget, 6 strings or 3 strings too many.